Good evening. A young senator by the name of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, when he was addressing the Zionist Organization of America during his 1960 presidential campaign, remarked that ever since David slew Goliath, age has not been a barrier to leadership in the Jewish community. Senator Kennedy saw something in the Jewish community that if we look closely, we too will see. This journey of ours, the last 2 weeks, we have been introduced to some incredibly inspirational and heroic young leaders and young people. Anne Frank, Mordechai and Alevitz, the survivors who were young when they survived their ordeal and are here with us to talk about it and to go with us on our journey. Theodore Herzl, Yoni Netanyahu, and the list goes on. But I would argue one of these young heroes that embodies best the spirit of the Jewish people and the spirit of the state of Israel is a woman by the name of Hannah Senesh. We all know the first part of her story. Seeing the writing on the wall in Hungary, she fled and emigrated here to Palestine. She worked in Kibbutz Sdot Yam near Caesarea, where she wrote some beautiful poems, one of which, Eli Eli, you heard sung at the international ceremony at Birkenau just last week. And then when the war got worse, Hannah Senesh joined the Jewish Brigade of the British Army, the first Jewish army in 2,000 years. And she was parachuted into Yugoslavia to go into Hungary to rescue Jews, among them her mother. And when she crossed the border into Yugoslavia with her fellow partisans, her commander at the time was a man by the name of Reuven Daphne. And Reuven pleaded with Hannah Senesh not to go, because you see, the forged documents that she had with her were not a very good forgery, and he feared that she would be captured. Hannah Senesh said to him that this was her calling, and the last thing she said to Reuven Daphne before she crossed that border was, if I give one Jew the will to survive, then I will not have died in vain. This haunted Reuven Daphne for many, many years, because as we know, Hannah Senesh was caught, she was captured, she was tortured and executed by the Nazis. She refused a blindfold because she wanted to look her tormentors in the eye in her last moments. And Reuven Daphne, haunted by her departure, haunted by the foolishness of her going across the border with little chance of success, only realized what Hannah Senesh meant many years later, when while working at Yad Vashem, he interviewed a young survivor. And when he told his story, it went something like this. I had given up. I was about to take my own life and throw myself on the barbed wire of Auschwitz. And then a rumor began circulating through the camp, a rumor that Jewish partisans had been parachuted into Europe to come and rescue us. And upon hearing that, this survivor said, if they are doing that for me, who am I to give up my life? And he and hundreds and thousands of others survived. And only upon hearing this story did Reuven Daphne fully then understand the heroism of Hannah Senesh, and that the last will of her life had indeed been fulfilled because her being in Europe gave this survivor and thousands others the will to live. And think about Mordechai and Alevitz, the leader of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, who in his last letter wrote, the last wish of my life has been fulfilled. Jewish self-defense is a reality. And these two precursors to the IDF, these two brave warriors and soldiers, would take, I'm sure, great solace in the fact that Israel today has a powerful army, an army that we recognize and memorialize today during Yom Hazikaron, an army that not only protects the state of Israel, but protects Jews all over the world. These young people built this incredible state. Young people like you. Young people with nothing who came here and believed in a dream and believed in a principle. And now it's 2015. And you know what they're saying about you? You need to simply pick up any Jewish newspaper, sit around any Jewish table, read things like the Pew Study. And what they're saying about you, the young members of this Jewish community, is that you are apathetic, that you don't care about the Jewish community, that your connection to Israel is not like that connection of your parents and your grandparents. And I only wish that these people, these naysayers, had the opportunity to spend last week and this week with all of you, and to see your passion and your commitment, to see your tears and your happiness, and to see how deeply committed you are to Judaism, to the Jewish community, and to the state of Israel. Because if they traveled on the March of the Living with you, they would surely change their mind. You are referred often as the next generation. And I want you to shed this title tonight, because you are not the next generation. You are today's Jewish leaders. And that role of leadership begins here, and it begins now. A line from my favorite movie, The Field of Dreams, goes something like this: if you build it, they will come. And I believe the converse is true. I believe that if you come, and you have come, then you will build it. And you will build a strong and vibrant community. The founding document of the State of Israel, Megillat Atzmaut, Israel's Declaration of Independence, in the second to last paragraph, states and creates an obligation on Jewish people all over the world, whether you live in Israel or not, a responsibility to support the State of Israel. This is a unique document. No other Declaration of Independence creates a responsibility on non-citizens, but what it does in fact say is that we are one people, Am Yisrael, and whether we live here or there, we have a vested interest in the success of this enterprise. We sang Hatikva just last Thursday in possibly one of the worst places on earth, in Auschwitz-Birkenau. And we sang Hatikva to mourn and memorialize the victims of the Shoah. And then on Saturday night, we sang Hatikva again to celebrate being Jewish and to celebrate our Jewish traditions, as we brought life back into Warsaw University, an institution where Menachem Begin studied. And then just last night, we all sang Hatikva again to mourn and remember those who fell so that this state could thrive. And in a few short minutes at the conclusion of this ceremony, we will sing Hatikva once again to mark Israel's 67th birthday. And we will sing it loudly, and we will sing it with pride. This is our sacred text. This is what drives us. We've been referred to for generations as people of the book. And perhaps we're people of the book because we are a learned people who live by the books. But as I've said many times before, I would argue we are the people of the book because we are part of this incredible story, the story of the Jewish people. You just experienced two chapters, one incredibly tragic and another one incredibly triumphant. You, as that generation, have a privilege and an obligation to write the next chapter of that book. How the Jewish community looks a generation from now will be a direct result of what you do and how you build and create like those before you. I want to issue you, before I finish, one challenge, and then I want to make you a promise. The challenge is this: go back to your communities. Begin building those communities as active participants and not by sitting on the sidelines. Don't wait for your parents and your grandparents to tell you what type of Jewish community you should have. Take ownership and build one that you want. And I promise that if you do that, that will be amongst the most fulfilling things that you do in your life. Take your place amongst the young pioneers and heroes that came before you. Arik Einstein, who recently passed away, a great folk singer in the state of Israel, wrote a very famous song called Ani Ve'ata. You and I can change the world, and others will follow. Others before us have tried, but we will change the world. It's not often easy, and sometimes it's difficult, but you and I, we can change the world. I'll leave you with one thought, one proverb, and that is this: we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. We borrow it from you. It's time for you now to step up, and it's time for you to take it back. It's time for you to use the inspiration of the young people who you met in Poland and again here in Israel, and to take that inspiration and to begin to write the next chapter of the Jewish people. Because all of us old people here are very excited to read it. Hag Sameach.